Hello, happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to today's IG Live, Ask the Experts. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Thema Bryant, with us. She was on our podcast, Let's Talk Love, and IG Live with her first book. Her book, Homecoming. And now today we had the honor of talking to her about Matters of the Heart, her newest book. It's fantastic. It's about healing your relationship with yourself and those you love. Dr. Thema is going to be with us for the next 30 minutes to answer your questions about relationships, about self-love, self-care, all of these topics that I think we can all benefit from learning about and taking all these learnings into our lives so that we can love ourselves more and better and have better relationships. So I'm going to ask her to join the chat. Thank you for joining us today. There you are.
Hello. Thank you. Good to be with you.
So nice to see you, Dr.
Yes,
Thema. I love
as well.
talking to you about your book on the podcast. So I can't wait for that episode to come out.
I can't wait as
And
well.
now we have our community has submitted some great questions for you to answer. But I'm watching the chat as well, and I think anybody that's joining us right now, this is your opportunity to learn and to ask Dr. Thema your relationship questions. Dr. Thema Bryant. She's a professor at Pepperdine University in California. She is a psychologist, author, sacred artist, ordained minister. I know there's just all these other things that you're doing, Dr. Thema, but you're just a wealth of information and knowledge and grace. And I think it's just a pleasure having you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be with you all, and celebrate Matters of the Heart.
Great. So let's get into
Oh,
it. Let's go with the first question. And I'm watching the chat, everybody. So this is your chance. Please ask her your questions. So the first question is, what are the signs that I need to set stronger emotional boundaries? And how do I actually enforce them?
yes. So a sign that we need greater boundaries is when we feel drained, when we feel resentful, when the relationship or the friendship doesn't feel mutual or reciprocal, when it's no longer fulfilling. Then we want to think about how much time, how much energy am I investing in places and spaces where I don't want to be. And so it's important to shift, to honor those changes, and to recognize that so we don't leave people guessing, especially if it's a change that before we would spend every Saturday with this group of friends and you're wanting to do something different. Then I need to express that, communicate that, so that people aren't guessing every week, like, where is she or when is she coming?
Mm. And so you're going to speak very clearly.
Yeah, so we're gonna, and to express a boundary, especially an emotion shift, does not require blaming and shaming, right? I don't have to go out, unless someone has wronged or disrespected you in a way that you want to communicate about. If it is really just that you all are going in different directions, to say, I've enjoyed our time together, if that has been the case. But going forward on my Saturdays, I'm going to be doing something different. And so I wanted to let you all know so you wouldn't wonder, like, if something happened or where am I. But I've just decided in this season of my life, I want to spend my weekends in a different way.
I've heard you use this term before, Dr. Tim, and I really like it. Talking about the season
Yeah.
that you're in your life.
Yeah.
I really like it. It's good. It's really
Right.
good.
Because it doesn't dishonor my past season,
Mhm.
right? And my other seasons, it might have been good for me to sit there all Saturday and Sunday. But the season I'm in now, grow, we evolve and change. It doesn't work for me anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat is asking this. I go into fight or flight when people question me.
Hmm.
How can I begin to regulate my emotions so I can have healthy relationships with everyone in my life?
Yes, such a great question. And so, the fight or flight is associated with trauma. And so often when we are trauma survivors, we live life expecting the worst. And when we're
Mm.
expecting the worst, we can, as we talked about on your podcast, we can go into attack mode or warrior mode when people were not meaning to be combative. And so, we give ourselves pause to take a breath and then allow yourself to be curious about the various reasons someone may be asking the question, right? Because the warrior assumption is you're asking the question because you're trying to insult me or you're trying to embarrass me or you're trying to harm me in some way. So why else might somebody wonder whatever it is they're wondering? And then just giving myself the breath of realizing not everything is an attack will help me not to respond as a warrior. And it will also help me not to flee circumstances prematurely when it was really about people getting to know me.
Oh, yes. You talk about this in the book. It's a lot of us we learn how to be warriors,
Yeah.
and the antidote is gentleness.
Yes.
And so, how can we, in many aspects of our lives, in our relationships, take a sacred pause?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. So, when we're used to being harsh or being in warrior mode, we give ourselves permission to not have to respond impulsively,
Mhm.
right? If I'm used to having to fight, then my immediate response is going to attack,
Mhm.
right? So instead, I want to give myself permission to take breath. It may be a few minutes, and it may be even I'm going to circle back the next day, right? To say, well, let me think about that. I'll get back to you, right? Or if it's a workplace situation and something happens in the meeting, and let's say in the meeting, I'm stunned, I'm upset, I'm offended. I may think about it. I may consult what I like to say, my circle of elders, people I trust, like my wisdom circle, and then come back and say, I want to address something that was said at last week's meeting.
Oh, I really like that. I think too often it's like we live in this, everything
Right.
is constantly having,
Quick.
and just taking some time,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, really like that. Talking to your wisdom circle or people you
Yeah.
trust and you feel
Yeah.
safe around to be like, this is what happened. Can you give
Right.
me your perspective? Really
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And sometimes it will be to bring it back up in the meeting. Sometimes it would work better one-on-one, right?
Hmm.
To have a conversation with the person. So you figure that out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How do I know if I'm settling or if I just have unrealistic expectations in
Uh,
love?
Wow, that's a very good
It
question.
is.
Oh, yeah. When it is unrealistic expectations, you can ask yourself, unrealistic for who? Meaning, sometimes we think other people can be treated in a loving way. Other people can have someone that they're both emotionally and physically and maybe even spiritually drawn to. But for me, like, I better just take what I can get. Well, then that's settling, right? Because I believe it is possible for others, but it's not possible for me.
Mm,
But on the other end, we can have unrealistic expectations um, when we don't allow for people to be
mm,
human, right? Let's say someone is tired, right? That's a very human experience.
hmm.
So does someone always have to want to do the things I want to do? Or that's another unrealistic that we should have the same interest and the same opinions about everything. That's not realistic,
Nope.
right? That someone could only be my friend if we agree on like every topic. So we want to kind of learn each other, honor our humanity, honor other people's humanity, and recognize that we don't have to be clones in order to be connected.
Yes, really like that. So this question was coming in on the chat. How do I keep grounded in this turbulent life we live in? Tur- mm,
Mhm. Yes. So to ground ourselves, I encourage people to start morning
mm,
rituals. So, start your day. not when the alarm goes off, having to like jump out of the bed and get going. Because when I wake up at the time I have to get up, then I start my day with anxiety,
Mm.
right? I'm already behind, I'm already stressed, I'm already rushing. So I would say wake up a little before you need to get up and create rituals that are nourishing for you. So for some people, they might like to start their day with prayer or meditation. For some people, like to read something inspirational before they go out into the day. Some people journal. Some people stretch. I encourage everybody find a theme song,
Mm.
so some music can nourish you, so that when you interact with your loved ones or when you go out into the world, you're not showing up with an empty cup, right? I've already poured into myself, and now I can be a soft place to land as I interact with other people.
Really? That's just brilliant.
Uh,
Too many of us are said, I know I
right.
do this, set my alarm, and I'm just like jumping out of bed.
Yeah.
But actually, how is that honoring my, like starting my day off? It's like
Right.
before you, like wake up before you need to
Yeah.
get up. I like that. And then you're setting,
Have
yeah,
a buffer.
mm,
Yep.
I
Sure.
really like that. How do I, you talk about this in your book, Dr. Tama, how do I rebuild trust after betrayal? What
Yeah.
should I, when should I stay and when should I walk away?
Uh-huh. So great question. And I'll answer the second one first, which is when should I stay and when should I walk away? That is going to be for each person to
Mm-hmm.
decide. You'll mess yourself up if you let other people choose for you, because then you may end up regretting it either way and then blaming people for making your choice, right? So there are people uh, who have decided to stay and they rebuilt the relationship, and they'll tell it as like this incredible story of overcoming, right? That the marriage went
Yes.
struggle, but we rebuilt and it was wonderful. You will also have people who will say, I stayed and I regretted it, but now I feel like it's too late because I'm older, or, I'm tied to this person financially, or the children, for whatever reason, they can stay and be resentful and disappointed in themselves. And on the other hand, there are people who leave and then miss the person, and you hear about people like remarrying the person they were married to before.
Mm-hmm.
Or there are people who leave and are like, this was the best choice. Like, I'm healthier, I'm happier. So you have to really do some self-reflection, reflecting on the relationship and on the person. I would say some things to consider are, is it a pattern? Or are we seeing a change? Now, let me say in terms of pattern, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. So whatever they did, this may be the first time, but it's a pattern of dishonoring, right? A pattern of disrespect, a pattern of disregard. So you want to tune into, like, was this a fulfilling relationship until this bad thing happened? And so we're trying to get it back to what it was. Or have I always been unfulfilled in it?
Mm-hmm.
Or felt emotionally, we talked about emotionally unsafe in it, right? So it requires that level of discernment. And then if you are going to try to stay and work it out, I definitely recommend counseling. And I also recommend deciding for yourself, the person who was betrayed, how much information you would like. And the person who did the betraying needs to honor your need for information,
Mm-hmm.
right? So some people are like, I don't want to know any details. It's just going to make me more upset. And they just want to move on. That's their choice. And then other people are like, I can't rebuild until I know everything. So I need to know. Right.
Yes.
So we have to honor that as part of the process. And then I would say for the person who did the betrayal, you have to sit with the fact that it's going to not be instant to rebuild that trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people get impatient or resentful of like, well, you said you forgave me and you're still asking where I'm going. Well, that's because the trust was broken. So the forgiveness may be one step, but the rebuilding is an ongoing process. And so, you have to, when you really understand what you've done, you'll be less impatient or harsh with people's process because you understand you've broken this person's heart and trust.
Yes. There is a whole section in your book about this, and how it, like you said in the very beginning, it's such a personal
Right.
journey,
Yes.
depending on the couple and how they navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so many things. Like, one thing you do caution is like who you are going to turn to in your
Right.
support system to talk to about this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And somebody may have a similar, they're saying, okay, I was betrayed and
Right.
this is what I did, so do
Yes.
this. Well, that, every
That
situation is
may not
different,
be
and so you
right.
have to
That
be
may not be.
also be careful who you're going to talk to and confide
Yeah.
in about this, right?
So you think about for your, let's say you're the friend or the family member, the cousin, the sister, you know, how do I show up for a person during that time? Is, that my care is for you, my priority is for you.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be well. So whether that's outside of this relationship or in the relationship, my priority is that you are well loved and well cared for, and whatever you choose, I'm here for you. Um,
I
so,
just think that is such a great way to stand by your person
right,
that's confiding in you,
yes,
and how you communicate that to them. That is like a soft place to land.
right. Because then wherever they go, they don't have to feel like embarrassed or judged by you.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not the one pressuring them of like, you must forgive and stay. And you're not the one pressuring them to say, you got to get out of there. They need to come to that clarity for themselves.
Right. Somebody in the chat is asking this: for the life of me, it is so hard to not raise my voice when I feel like I'm not being heard or
Yeah.
understood. What might be a good practice to get out of this response?
Yes, that's a great question. And I love you framing it as it's been my norm,
Mm,
right? This is just, it's what I do.
mm,
And so uh, when I understand it to be my norm, then I give myself grace and compassion as I learn a new
mhm,
way. Because what you're trying to build is a new muscle, a new
mhm.
habit, a new response style. And I'll bring back our phrase of taking sacred pause, right? Because if something is my norm, uh, then if I respond quickly, I'm going to go to my norm, right? Which is the yelling. So I want to take pause, I want to take breath, and I want to think about what is my hope for the communication, right?
Mm.
What is it that I want them to hear or to know? Because what we understand is uh, shouting doesn't always get us heard. It may actually cause the other person to shut down. It can make the other person shout more. And so, like, we're continuing to escalate and nobody's hearing anybody, right? So sometimes what you can consider doing is the exact opposite. Instead of yelling, is to pause, get very still and quiet, and say, I feel like you're not hearing me. And when you're ready to listen, I'll say my point again.
Yes. You
Yeah.
know what? When this question came up, I had like this image of being like, you know, we have to do like a pause here,
Yeah.
like doing the hand signal,
Right.
like time out.
Yeah.
I am not, this is not allowing me to use my voice,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I need time. I need some space here. And
Right.
are you ready to listen?
Yeah.
Just like you said, there's a way to do this without raising your voice.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you think about the kind of relationship you're trying to build with this person, right? Because it's not just that I want to be heard,
Mm,
it's, I'm trying to create this to be a nourishing, loving, safe space. And so how do I do my part in trying to create that?
yes.
Mhm.
This person in the chat's also asking, I struggle with knowing if what feels like if what feels like a need is actually a need.
Mhm.
I was told in an abusive marriage that I left, that my needs were too much.
Mm,
How do I learn to trust myself again and
mm.
share them?
Yeah, it's a great point. So one is, the common saying of sometimes we're not asking too much, we're asking the wrong person. So
Mm, mm,
sometimes a part of how you heal or test it out is to have new, different experiences with people who are healthy and caring and loving.
mm.
And I would also say for me to be intentional about what are the ways I'm providing care for myself so that I am not expecting someone else to be the source of all of my joy, for them
Yes.
to be the source of all of my peace. So I can honestly say, no, I've been taking care of myself. I've been tending to myself physically, emotionally, spiritually. And in addition to my self care, I also want relational care. I also want care in this relationship. And I haven't been feeling it in the way I would like to receive it. So that can be a self check, right? Am I expecting them to be totally responsible for my well being? Or I'm doing my care, may also have friends or therapist or whoever, and there are still ways I would like this person to show up for me.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
so good. What is the first step into finding yourself after identifying you are in a strong codependent relationship with your partner?
hmm It is going to be so important to surround ourselves or connect with healthy people because a part of the way we know ourselves is in connection and relationship to others. But when I am like locked into this other person's reflection of me, it's hard for me to know that their perspective is not the only perspective, right, of who I am. So, in part, it can be diversifying the voices and widening my circle, but also in terms of my self knowing, I encourage journaling. And if you're not into writing, you can also use the voice note on your phone
Mm.
so that you can hear your thoughts, right? Express your feelings, know yourself, and that I don't have to wait for someone else to validate or endorse it for it to be true.
So when you're seeing a relationship where there is like a strong codependency, um, you people can, if they're willing to work together, change that dynamic, right?
Yes. So you mean within the relationship?
Yes.
Yeah. So a part of it, when we say like, can relationships shift, change, grow? It requires awareness and a sincere desire and willingness to do the work from both people, right? And
Mm,
sometimes what happens is one person is wanting a change and one person either doesn't see it as a problem or does this script of saying, um, it's just me, right?
mm,
That you accept me as I am. And
mm-hmm.
one of the important points therapeutically is for us to recognize my wound versus my identity, right?
My
So if
okay.
we're wounded early in life, then the ways in which we show up can be out of that early harm, but we confuse that with being our personality or our identity because it was developed so early, right?
Right.
So instead, having this desire to authentically heal and grow and being open to change.
Yes. Right. Being open and willing to change.
Yes, yes.
How do I balance being open to love while still protecting myself from being hurt?
Mhm. So we need to allow ourselves to grow in love, to grow in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so many times we are either all the way shut down or wide open and you don't even know the person yet. right? So just like you would as a friend, if I'm getting to know a friend, I would share some things and we see like how that goes before I like give you my whole life story and all my hopes and dreams and fears, right?
Mm.
So it can be a setup for disappointment when we kind of open the floodgates. And also, it can scare people away that it could have been a good connection, but we didn't allow it to bloom, right? We just kind of flooded people with where we are. So it is going to be important to say, I'm going to be open, but I'm going to allow it to develop at a slower pace.
And that was something that somebody in the chat was asking Dr. Tama around how do you know, if you are like if you are dating and if somebody is healed or healing and working on themselves. And I think you wouldn't know that unless you give it time. Like
Hmm.
that person will show you in their actions, in their words, in their consistency,
Right.
if they are on that, like if they're doing the work and the self-awareness and self-growth piece, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because we're looking for not just the words, but the actions. And then the word that you use, which is so important, is consistency, right?
Yes.
They're not getting frustrated and quitting or giving up, or like when you get mad, then they are like on point for a week, right? Or 10 days, and then it goes right back to the way it was. So then that's just the cycle versus like consistent growth and people not only owning, when we say like accountability and apologize, but change behavior, right? That
Mm.
wonderful quote of the best apology is change behavior.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I get comfortable receiving love instead of always being the one who gives?
Yeah,
Like you talk about this in your book, how a healthy heart, there's an inward and an outward flow.
that's right. That's
But
yeah,
I think so many of us are like so good at giving,
right.
but the receiving part
Yeah,
is not, we're not that
yeah,
muscle of receive. It's like the openness, the receiving is not, it doesn't come as
right,
naturally.
right. Well, we often receive these messages of like, you got to be the strong one. You
Mm.
got to take care of everybody else. And so instead, to receive is to soften and be safe,
Mm.
right? To be open. Because if I don't trust someone, then I don't want them to know I need anything. I'm like, I got it. I'm fine. I don't need
And
anything.
that's coming across as
Yeah,
cold, closed. Like
yeah,
we can feel when somebody
right.
is
Yeah,
blocked or
yeah,
closed, right? Their energy,
yeah.
their mm,
So what happens, in relationship is sometimes we are closed off because we're afraid of disappointment, right? We're like, I don't want to become dependent on someone being nice to me and then they're going to change or then they're going to disappear. And so loving, including receiving love, is taking the risk, right?
taking the
That
risk.
I'm willing to risk opening up my heart because if it aligns, it's going to be worth it,
Yeah,
right? If it doesn't, and this person is a disappointment, then I can end it and heal and move forward. Uh, but if it does, if this person who is trying to love me is sincere, then that's life changing to have that mutually uh, agreed upon, this mutually flowing love. So, thank you so much for having me.
thank
I have
you for
enjoyed
being
it.
here, Dr. Tama. I hope everybody picks up a copy of your beautiful book.
Oh,
And
thank you.
thank you for joining us on the
All
podcast.
right.
And you're always such a joy to be with. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Take good
Okay,
care.
bye.
Bye.